traditionally, so yoga historically only men practiced. That's it, right? Like before asana even came around, which was like right near like late centuries of 1800s. Yoga is a way of life. It didn't really have postures. The postures were meditation posture. And then there was a dude that put out something called the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, and he started to teach like different poses to warm the body up for meditation. So there's 16 poses in the first book, and pretty much every one of them is a variation of lotus pose, right? Like the the full sit up in meditation. So then there was a dude, his name's Sri Krishnamacharya, and he started the first school of yoga. It was only boys, and we're talking like 4-year-olds. And then you took like you went to school, and this is what you learned. It was like boarding school, and you learned yoga, and that's when the poses really started to come out. And that's why aesthetic yoga is a thing. And I'm not saying it's wrong, even though it kind of is, because if you're 4, and let's just say if you're in dance or gymnastics, right, you learn to mold your body that way. And so they molded the kids' bodies into the poses to look that way. And they were all boys too. So boys have different pelvic structures, right? Because they don't carry babies. So then that was it. So then there's this dude, his name's BKS Iyengar, and he's 28 years old, way too old to practice, like just start practicing yoga. But he was married, no, he was the brother of Krishnamacharya's wife. And so he had like severe scoliosis, he had tuberculosis, and the parents sent him to live with the sister because Krishnamacharya was like also a doctor. And so he keeps saying, let me come to yoga, let me come to yoga. And they're like, you're too old, you're too sick, you can't come to yoga. So finally, they get Krishnamacharya to say, okay, because Krishnamacharya, I mean, it takes off. And all of a sudden, like, there's a woman from Latvia, and she knows the royal family of India, and she's a woman. And he's like, there's no freaking way. But she gets in there. And so now all of a sudden he's teaching women and he's teaching older people. He's teaching his kids. So BKS Iyengar got in there, but he's like, okay, like, how are you, crippled old you, going to do the poses? So they built props to help him do the poses. And he was cured like in a year of both scoliosis and tuberculosis. And then he brought all of the teachings over to like New York. Yeah. And he created restorative yoga. So because he was so sick and he couldn't practice, he had to practice the poses more supported. So he thought there's all these benefits to these postures. Like the doctors were creating them and saying, this is what it does to your body. This is where it works. This is what it does internally. And so he thought, well, if there's all these benefits, then why isn't everybody practicing them, even if you're injured or sick? So he created ways to do all the postures in restorative as a way to heal the body. Yeah, kind of neat, hey? The first school of yoga was in 1899 in India, like the first official school where they started teaching postures. And then BKS Iyengar, there's 4 founding fathers. There's also a guy named Patabi Joyce. He made Ashtanga. If anybody knows Ashtanga, it's all kids yoga, all of it. Everything is kids yoga because they were teaching kids, not adults. So with Ashtanga, there's posters. That's why they would put the posters up and tell the kids practice like in the morning. Silence, 2 hours on your own, work through the poses. And so when Patabi Joyce came over with this series, I mean, it was like teaching kids, right? Nobody knew anything. So he put the poster up and then he said, here's your 2 hours, do this. And then teachers would walk around, and Ashtanga is It's a very aesthetic approach to yoga. So it can be very, it damages people's bodies because the teachers will step on people, to get them deep in. I've never gone as deep as I have doing like unless I'm doing Ashtanga. And it also, like, if there's any kind of like weakness or injury waiting to happen, it's probably going to happen. So then Vinyasa was born of Ashtanga because people got sick of doing the same thing over and over again, but also it was the pushing of the bodies. So that's kind of how, and then Anusara came because Anusara was like, hey, we need a strong practice, but we need to stop hurting people. So it became like the rehab for Ashtanga. And then all of these different lineages have kind of come through. Yogananda came here in the 50s, I think. So it's been, yeah. We're now in the postmodern era of yoga. But if you say yoga, what are you guys thinking? You're going to come here and do a bunch of poses, right? So there's 8 limbs to yoga. That's actually what Ashtanga means, is 8 limb. Ashtanga yoga, the 8 limb path to living a meaningful and purposeful life. So the first limb is yama, and yama is like your restraints, like things you're not supposed to do, like ahimsa, like don't be violent, and satya, like don't lie, be truthful. Like there's 5 precepts of things not to do. And then the niyamas is the second limb, and there are 5 precepts of things to do, like be clean, like saucha, like have purity, and santosha, like if you live a life where you have high highs, there's physics, which says that there's an equal and opposite reaction to everything. So that means that you will have very low lows. And that means you live on a roller coaster. And while that might be fun for you, it just isn't fun for me anymore. So santosha is finding contentment, finding a place, kind of like the Buddhists call the middle path, where your highs and lows are equal. Not like they're not like this. So then the third limb is asana, which is the postures. The fourth limb is pranayama, which is the breath. The fifth limb is pratyahara, which is withdrawal from your senses, because your senses lie to you, right? Like they lie to you, creating your future. If you want to make $1 million, right? Manifestation says it's already there. You just got to bring it in. Your senses say, it's not here. And if you keep playing out, you go where you look. So if you're like, it's not here, then you're going to manifest more of it's not here. So stop looking outside of yourself and start to look inside. And when you look inside, then there's dharana, which is intense focus or concentration. So that means you learn to not be super distracted. Thank you, Onyx. Which brings us to the seventh limb, which is dhyana or meditation. And I love it when people say, like, I'm not good at meditation. And the funny thing is, the first 6 limbs we do, and the last 2 limbs happen to us. So if the 7th limb is dhyana and it's meditation, that means meditation happens to us. You don't actually do it. What you do is you withdraw your senses and you intensely focus. And when you do that, meditation will happen to you. And once you find a state of meditation on the regular, there's the opportunity to also find samadhi. And samadhi is like returning to source.